Hello, I'm Donna Skell, along with my co-host Tiffany Ross. Welcome to A Time to Dream. We're brought to you by Roaring Lambs Ministries, and you'll just have to check us out at roaringlambs.org. We have all kinds of ways that we think we can minister to you, help you tell your story, and give you opportunity to do so, either here on A Time to Dream, or if you're a writer, you might submit your story as we publish our 6th edition of Stories of Roaring Faith. We'd love to include your story. But we're excited today about this show because I think it's really just going to help a lot of people. You know, have you ever seen something that you've felt in your life or you've gone through in your life where initially maybe it was hard or difficult, or maybe you didn't even think it was good, but then in hindsight you saw how God used it and it turned out to be a blessing? Well, our guest knows all about that. Our guest today is Deborah Walley. Deborah lives in the Dallas Metroplex and has worked as an office assistant for a major corporation in Dallas. She's been a veterinarian technician in Houston and a Montessori director in Carrollton. Also a business owner since 1982. Deb and her husband have raised 2 beautiful daughters together. She's now retired, but surprisingly busier than ever. Deborah, welcome to A Time to Dream. We're delighted to have you on our program, and I love the theme of your story, finding the blessings in disguise in our lives. And it's often just a simple matter of perspective and a method we can all apply. Though we're going to focus mostly on your adult life, we'd love to hear about your childhood and how your life began. So please share with us.
Well, I was born in Mansfield, Louisiana, and I was the last child of 4. I have an older brother that's 14 years older than me, a sister that's 9 years older, and a brother that's 4 years older, almost exactly 4 years older. And we lived in a large, rundown mansion in Mansfield, Louisiana, pre-Civil War. We lived in 3 of the rooms, and thank goodness it was September, because I hear we got pretty cold when it got to be winter time, and we moved. In fact, moving was kind of a central theme in my life. We moved a lot, whether it be for getting out of the cold or just a different job in a different place. My father was very intelligent. My mother was very loving, and together I think they raised really 4 great kids. They're all Christians. Somehow, I think Mother was a Christian. We didn't really attend church that often. As a family, hardly ever. And anyway, we got along, and I can't remember going to church as a family until after I was 5. Before that, we lived in about 5 different places in Louisiana, and we lived in California, and then we moved back to Louisiana, and there I started going to church with my sister. She was 9 years older, and she sang, and she was such a doting older sister. Nice. She was like I was like her live baby.
Right.
And she still says, even though she has 1 daughter, that I was the most beautiful baby she had ever seen. I don't know.
Well, she had ever helped raise.
Well, that's true. I think that's. And she went to church, and she sometimes sang, and I mainly slept on her lap. But I think I really got a lot out of it. So never doubt when your child wants to sleep in church.
There you go.
Right. It sometimes, you know, sort of seeps through. The knowledge seeps through. And I guess that's about it as far as any till about 10. And then my sister went off to college and things changed.
So, you know, growing up, and it's so sweet of your sister taking you to church like that. And I have sweet memories of falling asleep in the pew in my mom's lap and hearing our preacher's voice was very low and booming, and it's just soothing. And you never know. You know, for those of you who do take your children to church, let them sleep in your lap, because they really are absorbing the Spirit. And so, but speaking of the Holy Spirit, you had an encounter with the Lord when you were 12, you say, in Louisiana. Would you share with us about that?
We were having, I think, a revival at the church, and I think it was Harmony Christian Baptist Church. And I don't even think it was a town. It was just a little community church. And I was sitting with friends, and they were easier, nicer. They came from a long line of my mother's relatives, and they knew my mother and her relatives. So it was an easier crowd to get to know. And I was sitting with teenagers, there again, you know, least likely place to maybe have listened and absorbed and, you know, really felt the presence of God. And it was like a warmth that came over me. And I just knew that something had changed. And he was talking about the grandeur of heaven in comparison to the doom and gloom of hell. And I just did not want to go to hell, and I wanted to be a good person, and I wanted to know more about God, and I wanted to, you know, learn more about God, and never go to that bad place. And we continued to go to church there, and then about 2 years later, all of a sudden we quit going, and I don't remember why. I think it had something to do with some church business, and that's so hard for anybody, a child, an adult, going through a church when there's church problems. And I've actually been through that twice. So don't let that discourage you from going to church. God will make it, it's his bride. He will make it the church whole again.
But so at about age 12 or so, you prayed and asked Jesus to come into your life.
Yes, I did.
You made him Lord of your life. But then shortly after that, or a couple years after that, I like to say we drift. Sometimes we just drift away from God.
Yes.
We don't mean to. Sometimes it's the influence of people that we're around or our surroundings, but we drift. But God doesn't let us stay for long. He goes after the one sheep that left, the 99. He'll go after that one sheep and bring them back. And that's what he did for you. Right. And so you married.
Yes, I got married early.
2 children.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I got married when I was 18. It was young, yes, but I had a job for 8 months, full time. I moved right out of the home with my sister, the older sister, and I got a job, and he had a full-time job. He had already been to the Army and back. And so I was 18, he was 22. And so we were more mature than the regular 18, 22-year-old, especially of today.
That's true.
And anyway, we were very happy, and then we forgot all about going to church, except routine, Easter, Christmas, the usual. And then we were married for over 7 years, and then we had our oldest daughter, Lauren, and perfect child, 9 pounds, 11 ounces, 9.9 Apgar, just perfectly healthy, and did everything early, and a little hyper, but she was just a ball of fun. And then we moved to Dallas. My husband had been in business in Houston with his cousin, and we sold out of that business and we moved to Dallas, and we started the business here. And we didn't have insurance for a short time here. And then I got pregnant with my second child. And I had a different group of doctors from Houston, of course, and 3 doctors, and I saw one month and one month and it was just so sporadic. And also I was in Carrollton, and they were opening Trinity Medical Center, so it was just all new. Things were going crazy. And then I gave birth in the birthing room on a cold February night, not unlike what we just had, in the birthing room with a different doctor, a Dr. Chai, who I had not gone to all those months, and I had a baby. And I didn't know anything was wrong with her, and I saw her for the first time, and I thought everything looked great. But in the background, my husband was having conversations with the doctor and with the pediatrician, telling me that there's a possibility that Lindsay had Down syndrome. Well, I didn't know anything about this, and they decided that they were not going to tell me that there was a possibility that she had Down syndrome, because they knew that the test would come back in 2 days. Well, my husband didn't know that they were going to send the test all the way to New Jersey. And I was in the hospital, my daughter was in the hospital. There was a little issue with jaundice, and she had to stay under the lights. And then I was in the hospital Sunday night, that's when she was born, and my doctor, who did not show up for my delivery, not either 3 of them showed up, called me, one of them, Dr. Sigmund, I remember, and asked me if I knew that there was a possibility that my daughter was mongoloid. I knew that term. It hit me like a ton of bricks. My mother was there. It hit me like the wall coming and hitting my face. Got out of the hospital, and depression hit. My husband went to work. That was his
escape.
Right, and we had a new business. We had a new business, and I had a 3.5-year-old. It's what saved my sanity and what made my sanity at risk, if you can imagine.
Yes.
At 6 weeks old, we got a conclusive diagnosis in an utterly disturbing way. They had to go in for the jugular vein. A cardiologist had to in her head, and she had to be awake. And I have never heard any live being squall like that. And it was just heartbreaking. And I was in a waiting room with a lot of other people, and they were hearing it, and they were so wonderful. They were just almost in tears for me. And my husband was there with me. And so we got the final diagnosis, and we had kind of, okay, we can do this, and started her at Easter Seals, and we were trying to get back to normal life. We even went to Big Time Pizza, took Lauren and Lindsay. And of course, Lindsay couldn't enjoy it, but Lauren was having a blast. This woman came over, and in those pizza joints, it was always dark, and it was like mystery. And this woman turned out to be a pediatrician from Canada and asking me, did I know whether or not my child had Down syndrome. She said in her country, sometimes it goes missed. And I just informed her that yes, I know my daughter has Down syndrome. You know, it was just heart-rending. We were trying to get away, trying to get some normalcy and back in our family, and then that happened. So we left in tears. And of course, my daughter had a great time, you know. Lauren had a great time. And then the growing up years happened, and she had speech and therapy, physical therapy. Not too interested in physical therapy. She'd ride the little tricycle as long as you pulled it, but she was more interested in shopping on either side of the tricycle than getting those motions down. And anyway, and she was in all the regular things, ballet, a little dance growing up, and you know, and also when it came to education, she started early childhood education at 3, and it was a horrible experience for 6 weeks. The teacher was not good. I still remember her name. We're not going to say names. But that was her last year, for sure, because I just let the hammer. And I mean, it was just petty things. She shouldn't be wearing dress shoes to school. They were the kind with the felt on the bottom. They were comfortable to her, non-slip. She shouldn't be wearing... Anyway, and then she told me this teacher told me in a classroom situation, homeroom night, that Lindsay didn't bother anyone. And then also they were using treats to stimulate positive answers, which is definitely a no-no for any child. And anyway, lots of different problems with that class. And then, so I took her out, and that's when the Montessori education began, mine and hers. And I was in school, she was in school, my mother lived with us. Lindsay did not want to go to school a lot of times. And my mom said, you know, maybe she just needs to be in like a little play group with regular children. And I was like, no, she needs education. She needs education. Looking back, maybe mother was right, because she did not go to school, the Montessori school, but about half the time. And then we got thinking, okay, Montessori might not be right for her. She wasn't really getting into things that would help her get involved with speech with other people, like a public situation. And I thought Montessori was great for everybody, but it might not work for her. So I said, okay, what am I going to do? That was 3 to 4 or 5. Okay, what am I going to do? She can't get into public wherever. What am I going to do? Got involved with the Down Syndrome Guild. Was on the board for a while. Then got into a group, local group, that wanted to include their children, and went before the school board. And at first we went to the superintendent and got absolutely nowhere. And he was just saying that we have a system, they need to be with like people, and that was it. And then I actually was the speaker before the school board. And I just said, my daughter is at McCoy Elementary, my older daughter. I want my younger daughter to be at that same school starting in kindergarten. And I told them reasons why. And I said it would not only be good for her, it would be good for the people that were in there with her. I said kindergarten is very important to start this inclusion for all, her and the other children. And anyway, they were just kind of looking at me like, la 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 la, you know, we agree, but don't we have things that are set up to do this? And I said, no. I said, this is new. It's not what they call mainstreaming, where they go in and out and in and out. It's full inclusion. And I don't know how long it should last for Lindsay, but I have seen it last through high school. And anyway, so they went back and they conferenced, and I went to the principal's office at McCoy Elementary, and I can't remember what the timing was. I think I went to him before I went to the school board, our group, and I think I was shown the door, basically kicked out of his office. And the funniest thing, after Lindsay was included for 3 years, fully included in McCoy Elementary, he wrote his dissertation on inclusion.
Well, he learned something, didn't he?
I think so.
And even as we started the show, that's one of the blessings in disguise, is how he might have been against something up front, but having learned through it, it changed him.
Yes, and I think it changed the hearts of a lot of people that were in class with her. Their parents were so caring, and they all included her in their birthday parties, and we're still in touch with some of the little girls, and one boy in particular. All these years later, she's 36. She just turned 36.
Wow.
And on Facebook, happy birthday, Lindsay. And I'm like, oh, y'all are just great.
Where does Lindsay live now?
She lives with me. Yeah. We live in a 4-bedroom home, comfortable. One of the bedrooms is a little media room.
Deborah, I don't know if this would describe Lindsay or not, but every special person that I have interacted with who has Down syndrome, there seems to be a joy and an openness to people that I've never experienced in others like those people have. That it's like they're without guile. And I just see the Lord using people with Down syndrome to really touch people in their hearts. Do you find that with Lindsay?
Yes. At one time, we were trying to figure out why Lindsay had suddenly become totally incontinent. It was in 2006. She went to every type of doctor that could help her, from her PCP all the way to a urogynecologist, one of them at Baylor and one of them at UT Southwestern. She was like an ambassador for special needs, because she was such a joy to have as a patient, and it was all types of people, and she would just say some of the funniest things, and you hope that they would all be funny to the doctors. Anyway, and they just loved her. Now, she's not really the huggy, touchy type. She's more standoffish, but she's very good at letting them examine her, and those things. So she's an excellent patient still.
One of the things that you've learned by raising a Down syndrome child.
Well, I wish you would say child with Down syndrome.
Thank you for correcting me.
Right, because she is a child first. She just happens to have. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you for correcting me on that.
Okay.
But what have you learned through this situation?
I have learned so much.
Yes. What would be like 3 things that God has taught you through this life?
We just have to remember that our plan doesn't always synchronize with God's plan. Sometimes we get hit in the face with what happens to us on this earth, and we just have to begin to realize that His plan is ultimately the best plan for us. And we can only achieve that through prayer, in learning more, and learning more about ourselves, learning more about our child, learning more about whatever the situation is. Pray about it and know that it is God's plan, and we need to learn how to deal with it. And soon, after much prayer and thought, we figure out that God's plan was the perfect plan for us in disguise. And one of the ways that you can also deal with having a special needs child is get involved with the various support groups. Hopefully your church has a good support group for special needs. If not, try to find one. The internet wasn't around when Lindsay was born 36 years ago. I highly recommend that for, you know, good information for the most part. The Down Syndrome Guild helped me to begin with. I figured out I wasn't alone. Even though I was depressed, I got out of the house, I did things, I continued to go to church, I walked the walk, much before I really realized I was okay. And then when I was okay, it was such a blessing.
And right before the show, Deborah showed me a picture of Lindsay, and she's beautiful,
yes,
and she's joyful, and she looks content. And so what you just said was so good, that sometimes our plans aren't God's plans, but God's plans are always better. And in the beginning of the show, we talked about looking for those blessings that may be disguised as something that we don't recognize as a blessing, but if we look for the blessing in it, we'll find it. And then lastly, what you said is there are lots of places to go for help, and you can Google that and find out what's close to you, but there's lots of places where mothers with children that do have Down syndrome, where they gather, where they encourage one another, where they learn from one another, and there's lots of avenues in today's world for help. So the best place to go, though, is God, and to lift up your needs and your child's needs in prayer. And if you don't know Jesus as your personal Lord and Savior, He is the source of all hope. And that's where you can find peace, you can find comfort, you can find wisdom, you can find knowledge, you can find all that He has for you. But it starts with inviting Jesus to be the Lord and Savior of your life. If you'd like to do that, there's no special prayer. You can just bow your head and in your own words, just ask God to fully reveal Himself to you, to come into your life and to guide and direct your life. And that's a prayer that He's so excited to answer. If you want to know more about Jesus, you can call us at 972-380-0123, either Tiffany or I would be glad to return your call and answer any questions you have, and to help guide you in your search and finding Jesus Christ. You can listen to past shows at roaringlambs.org, and you can reach us by email at atimetodream@gmail.com. You've been listening to Time to Dream today with Deborah Walley, and she would be glad to help you in any way that she can too. So thank you. Have a great week. Keep dreaming, and may God richly bless you.